Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to my August reading stats and favorites. If you don't know if this is your first month you've been watching me, welcome. This will not be a recounting of every single book that I've read in the month because as you're about to see, I've read 50 of them. What I have instead is in this video, I'll talk about my reading stats, how things are going, where I am with my goals for the year, and then I'm going to talk about my top 5 favorite books. I also have some honorable mentions to share. But if you want to know more in depth about every single book that I've read, I actually have weekly wrap-ups. I try to always remember to tag that playlist, but it's called 2022 wrap-ups. There are 34 or 5 of them in there, and I talk about every single book that I read, and you can learn more whether you want to read it or not. And I've been doing that for a couple years now because I like to talk a lot. You'll notice that most of those videos, well, all of those videos are between 30 minutes to over an hour. So we really dive deep into these things. So let's go ahead and get started because even though I'm only going to talk about 5 books, we're still going to be here for a while. So let's get started with my stats, okay? So this month, let me scoot over so I have room to put the beautiful graphic up here. I read 50 books, which is great. That is kind of a goal I had for myself, was to get to 50 books this month because it's just been bothering me that I've been sitting around 40. I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to hit 50, which was a total of 1,212 pages, which that is kind of bonkers to me because, sorry, I'm flipping back through my journal here. The month before I read 14,000 pages. Why did I say 1,700? Did I say 17,212? That's what I meant. And that's because I read some big ass books this month, and you'll see there's like 4 books that together they're like 2,000 pages of that is between those. Anyway, which averaged out to about 573 pages per day based off of, I divided that by 30 days since I did stop a day early. I'm filming this on the 30th. Those books were consumed in these formats. I had 23 ebooks, 15 audiobooks, 12 ARCs, and 16 physical books. And often my ebooks and audios or ebooks and physical overlap because sometimes I like to read and listen along with it. It makes me happy. The ratings for these books were as follows. I had 3 6-star reads, 11 5-stars, 2 4.5 stars. I kind of forgot about the half-star ratings this month, which happens sometimes. Sometimes I just feel more derisive. Anyway, 18 4 stars, 5 3.5 stars, 6 3 stars, 4 2.5 stars, and 1 2 star. So yeah, I definitely had some books on the lower end of the spectrum there, which is kind of funny. Usually once we get below 3 stars, I usually don't have more than 1 or 2 of those a month. But if you'd like to know more about some of the books that were really pissing me off this month, you can check out the playlist because a lot of those 2 and 2.5 stars were in the last couple of weeks. So there were some good rants. There were some good rants that we had going on. All right. I also been tracking lately how many books were standalones and how many were in series, which is just kind of funny. I don't have a goal of finishing series. A lot of people always ask me about series I need to finish, and the thing is I don't really have goals for that. I'll either finish a series or if it gets boring I don't know. So, but it's a fun stat that I track just to see because people like standalone recommendations sometimes, and they're very hard to find because obviously, especially for indie authors, but really any author, if you like a book that they're writing, sometimes it's nice to have the series continue, right? I know that happens for me. So I read 7 books that could stand alone, but 43 of them were parts of series. So that was kind of interesting. I liked it. Okay, so the subgenres that I read were, I had 15 contemporary books, 11 fantasy books, which is great. I've been reading a lot more fantasy lately, and I love it. I had 9 dark romance, 4 historical, 4 erotic, 4 paranormal, and 3 other. And then kind of some of like I don't like make a graphic for this, but because I just have room for it, I've been starting to like list kind of the top tropes I've been reading every month. And for this month, I had forced proximity, which I love that trope, obviously. And I had quite a few BDSM. You know, I was looking into pegging this month as well as like female dom. So I was reading quite a few of those. I had a lot of age gap at 11 of those. 9 enemies to lovers, and 8 friends to lovers. So that's kind of cool. And of course, like a lot of those tropes like overlap because I don't just pick one trope for a book. They really fit that way. And then another fun little celebration. I hit my Goodreads goal this month, which was cool. I make kind of an arbitrary one each year. The last few years I've made my goal. Let me show it because this year I have a cute little picture for it. I made it 365 books the last couple of years because I can read about 2 books a day. At least that's what my average was at the beginning of the year. And you can tell that, like, I read 500 plus pages a day. That's at least a book, sometimes 2, depending on the length of them, right? So 365 is just like, I feel good about myself if I read that, because that averages out to reading, 30 books a month. That averages out to like 30 books a month, which would be a very low amount for me. Of course, it would average out to 30 a month because it's 1 book a day. Anyway, but it felt fun to hit that, especially because the last few months I went a lot slower than normal, just it's been a thing I've been going through. But so this was my fun page. I just used whatever color that I was feeling. So I hit that. And then I didn't extend it on my Goodreads, but because I love having boxes to check off, like I love it. Even though, again, like I don't have a hard and fast rule for the year. You know what I mean? Like I won't be disappointed if I read less than 500 books because, I've already read some fantastic books this year, right? But anyway, I made a pretty new one with a goal of 500. And then if I hit this, which I definitely will, because I would only need to read like 30 books a month for the rest of the year, I'll just put whatever the total is right here when I finish. But I made a cute other one. But yeah. So those are what the stats are going, and yeah, hitting my Goodreads goal was fun, so that was great. As for other fun events that happened this month, I didn't have as many things going on. I mean, I'm gearing up kind of for, September is going to be the big fun month of going to Wanderlust, so, I might end up reading less this coming month because of that. So yeah, I mean, I did have that visit to my family where there's a vlog for my patrons, which is available if you sign up at the $10 level or above. I was making butter and we went mini golfing and it was a lot of fun with my family. But yeah, so, okay, we're going to get into my favorites of the month, which of course is my favorite part, to talk about my favorites. But I do have some honorable mentions in this one because to me, it was pretty clear like which my top 5 were, but I had some other books that were like 5-star, 4.5-star reads that I still wanted to just highlight. So I'm going to do that real quick before we get into my stack. So I did want to shout out Mafia Madman by Mila Finelli, The Kings of Italy. This is book 3, whereas like Mafia Mistress and Mafia Darling are books 1 and 2, and they're about the same couple. This one, you should read that duet first, but this one was an enemies to lovers, like kidnapping one. The hero from this was the villain in those 2, and he wants revenge against Fausto for what he's done to him, and the position that he's in now. And I had a really great time with this one. I just ended up having so many good reads this month that it didn't like quite make my top 5, but I'm just really loving what Mila Finelli is doing. I love how toxic yet compelling and lovable she makes this couple, and their spice is amazing. And our heroine, she will top from the bottom as much as she can. This hero is just trying to break her and dominate her. He keeps her naked, locked up in a room basically to mess with her. And what does the bitch do? She starts doing yoga. She starts doing her breathing. She is working out, keeping her strength up. And she's not going to be broken by who she sees as this twisted fucker who had, you know, done horrible things to her sister. He didn't actually do, he threatened to do some things is a lot of what it was, right? He threatened to do things. But she just does not, Gia just does not back down. And I love that. I really, really did. I thought she was going to be bratty and annoy me. And, she is a brat. But because she's annoying him, she doesn't annoy me. You know, she isn't the kind of brat where I'm like, could you just get along? You know, what are you doing? I'm like, no, you're a badass. And he is being horrible to you. Give him shit. But they're so attracted to each other. They just can't help it. And there is some, you know, there's lots of different dynamic play. Of course, it isn't safe, sane, and consensual, so it's not that, but in a kidnapping scenario, and just, he's so attracted to her that he can't help but slowly, fall for her and, bend to her will a little bit. But it's he's been working on this plan of revenge for so long, and he can't let this hot little piece mess him up. You know, but I liked how this one worked out, and I love that there's going to be another one, and it's going to be a gay mafia romance, and I'm so excited because we get so few of those, and I can't wait. So I highly recommend this series. The first book was tough for me. It was hard for me, but I feel like that duet had such a great character arc for the hero and the heroine, and then this book was just a delight, and the primal play was amazing, and I loved it. Then I am going to shout out this controversial wee book here, which I have a whole vlog on, which was very emotional for me. It's almost an hour-long vlog. And you can see my more in-depth thoughts about why I'm going to say what I'm going to say now. And that is Pen Pal by J.T. Geisinger. This book is definitely splitting some people down the middle, for sure. I wouldn't classify it as a romance based on the classical sense of what needs to be in a romance and what I expect. This doesn't have a traditional HEA. And I know I'm cringing saying it, okay? I'm cringing saying it because I am a staunch supporter of, if you're calling your book a romance, it needs to be this, and really, it just needs to have the one thing, you know? There are some other things it should also have, but it really only has to have the one thing, and that's an HEA and the romance reader it's about. However, when I finished the book, I was very broken, but I was like, I feel like they're happy. There are a lot of other things that can go into it, a lot of other things people can feel. I absolutely understand if nobody wants to touch this, but this book is doing amazing. I'm very happy for JT, especially for how personal this book is to her. Ooh, it's beautiful. I hope someday this gets a different cover, even though I love this cover. I wish it had more of a thriller or erotic horror cover and not a, thirst trap cover. Even though I love it, I love the look of Dante on the cover of this book. I think it would have been received better in a lot of ways. And again, go see my vlog about it. I'm still putting this out there because I think this will be a great book for October. I think if you go in knowing the caveats that I and others have placed on it, that you would have a better reading experience. If you go in knowing you're not going to be completely satisfied, but you like a fucked up story, you like a twist up, you still want it to have lots of sex, this might be great for you. But it didn't make it on my favorites of the month just because it's too unsatisfying, even though I was oddly satisfied. I know, I'm talking in circles. Go watch my full review, which I will link, which has my spoiler thoughts and why I'm explaining it this way. But I had to put in my honorable mentions because I haven't stopped thinking about it since then. It's not a book I'm eager to reread it, but I think it was well done, in my opinion. And when the audiobook comes out, which will have Daddy Troy Duran doing it, I'm probably going to read it again so I can listen to it performed and enjoy that. So anyway, and then the last honorable mention before we get to my favorites, I just talked about this in my weekly wrap up, but I was really wanting to reread some books. I wasn't feeling slumpy, but I was just really craving some familiarity and like a coziness. You know how it goes. And when that happens, I go to rereads. And a reread that I've been saving because I didn't want to get sucked back in, I was like, I don't have time for a 3-book reread, but I made time. I reread the Illuminate Files, which is totally not my like, you know, normal demographic here anymore. But this is a YA like sci-fi trilogy by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman, and I love this, the audiobook. I say it again and again, especially if you have like teenage kids and you like listening to audiobooks together. You have like vacations are probably done, but when you have Christmas trips later on, I highly recommend these audiobooks for the whole family. They're definitely like upper YA because there is some violence and like especially suggested at the violence and spookiness in these, but I love this trilogy. This is the third or fourth time I've reread it. And again, you can check out my last weekly wrap up for more in depth about what these ones are, but I just wanted to mention them again. I'll mention them always because rereading them just reignited my love of it, and I actually got my sister to reread them too because she's like, oh my gosh, these are so fun. And I was like, they're amazing. Okay, so now let's go through my favorites of the month, and I'm just gonna go through them like chronological order of when I read them in the month. When I have my favorites, when I do like these top 5, it doesn't necessarily mean that they like this is the order they're in, so I'm just gonna go in order for these. So the first 6-star book that I had for the month was Sweet Like Poison by Jay Wolf. This is the 3rd book in the Savage You series. Of course, people are gonna want to know, do I have to read all of the books? You don't. You could read this as a standalone new adult college scenario, but I'll say like the reason why this book touched me so much is because I saw the journey of Elena, which starts back with Start a Fire. Let me find where she has these listed. Start a Fire is book 1 in the Savage Crew series, and that was a high school bully romance, and we meet Elena in there. And then we go through the Savage Crew series. There's Through the Ashes, Burn It Down, where we learn more and more about her, and we fall for her even more. And then we have the Savage Crew series, which or the Savage You series, which has Soft Like Thunder, Bright Like Midnight, and finally we have Sweet Like Poison. And there is going to be one more, Sweet Like Daydream, or like something like Daydreams. There's going to be another one, which will be about another character in here that we watch grow. Anyway, what is this about? This is about Elena, like I said, and then there is Lachlan, who is this mountain of a man who lives next door, and he has already judged her for all these things when he sees her. He is from is it Montana or Wyoming? Not sure where, I wrote it down somewhere. And he's just here at Savage U to get his degree, and he's going to be moving back to where he's from and help run the family ranch. So we definitely have like cowboy vibes off of him for sure, like blue collar working man, like he works at like as a janitor. So they end up living next door, and before their friends get back to town, she's living in one house, he's living next door, and she needs some renovation work done, and it doesn't end up, like the men that she'd hired to do it aren't doing the job. And so Lachlan gets tired of watching her pathetically try to put this deck together, and so he's like, Princess, I'm gonna handle it. And so he starts coming over to work on this, and then when the deck gets finished, they end up having this like weekend fling. But when their friends are coming back, Lachlan is like, we gotta be done. I don't want our friends to know about this. I'm not planning for this to be serious. And Elena's like, oh, sure, cool. You're not the first guy who's made me come since I was assaulted in high school. No big deal. No, of course she doesn't tell him that. But we know these things about Elena. And so she's just kind of stunned. She's always the one in control with men. And Lachlan's just like, this was fun. This was great. Had a good time. But I'm not looking for anything serious. I'm going back to Montana when school is over. But they just can't stay away from each other. And I'm cutting this down to such bare bones to explain it, because I definitely talk more about this in my reading vlog when I read this book for the Romance Takeover Readathon. But something about Lachlan and Elena, like, they're so different in so many ways. And as it's like said, like, even the author is sharing this too. They very much give me Yellowstone vibes, like the relationship between Beth and Rip in there. And that's part of why this, like, also the hero is not like traditionally handsome. He's big, he's husky, he's very strong because he's a worker, but like he has a soft belly, it's explained, and he's like thick thighs and like all these things. And he's not traditionally handsome, but he's magnetic to Elena. And he may have judged her wrongly, but he also like doesn't immediately expect certain things. He's just kind of like, she's gonna be this way. And when she proves him wrong, he's willing to change his mind. And I'm doing a horrible job explaining this book, but it was so beautiful to me, and the way that they like get closer together, but because they're so different, they don't know how it could work. And I was getting really nervous near the end of it. I read an arc of this book and I was like, Jay Wolf, what are you going to do to me here? What's going to be this final conflict push? I'm really nervous about what it's going to be. But the way that she solved it, the way that a grand gesture was made, I was like, day made, this is it. This is what I want here. So I'm going to stop now because I'm doing a horrible job. But I loved this book. It meant so much to me. It's probably my favorite like new adult book, maybe besides like Untouchable. And not because it's like Untouchable, it's completely different, but it's just that level of like, there are things between these two that I'm never gonna forget, and like I can't wait to reread this book. Like I cannot wait to reread this book and just soak it all up again. All right, then we have one of my most anticipated reads of this summer, and that is Between Despair and Hope. Look at this gorgeous, gorgeous thing. This is the second book in the Divine Between. Oh, it's so pretty. She has like different page art. I haven't even looked through this book yet. I just put it on my shelves. She has like different like chapter heading art for each character. It's so beautiful. Anyway, this book picks up right where Between Wrath and Mercy ended, and there was some pretty dramatic cliffhangers in that book, and we dive back into this, and now we have 6 POVs instead of 1. We have Emma and Rain, and then we have Alora and Siren, and we have DeWalt and Lavinia. And I won't tell you what's going on with them or anything, but there are now 6 POVs. And I have to say, I was nervous about us jumping into that many POVs. But I think it's done really well, because we don't visit these POVs constantly. You know, it doesn't feel like we're jerked in a lot of different directions. Jess is very discerning with when they come in and when they're necessary. It's like just when you need them, you know? And there are a lot of struggles we see in this one. There are some trigger warnings for torture and PTSD involved. This is still very spicy. This one was well, not very spicy, but this one was like a 3.5 spice, so very good for a fantasy book, especially because, you know, Emma and Rain, what I always said about the first book is that there was a cliffhanger for the plot, but this couple was together at the end of the book. And when we start this one, they are not physically together because of reasons, and because they're a bonded pair in the way that it goes in here, like there's severe damage done to their connection and to their psyches by being kept apart from each other by the forces of this book. And it was very hard to read, like it was painful to see, but I think she did great. I think the pacing was done so much better with this, and Jess said she worked on that so hard. Jess is actually going to be on my channel on November 3rd, which should just be like a day or two after you're seeing this video, so definitely come check it out. There will be 4 books in this series, so I understand if people want to wait till it's done. I don't know, I feel like you should get on board. The audiobooks are going to be coming in January and March, so I also understand if people want to wait till then. I don't know, we'll see. But I loved where the story went. We get introduced to dragons in this book, and I want to tell you how, but it's pretty cool. We get to see our characters level up with their powers, and we get to know these other 5 POVs we're introduced to, you know, like we thought we knew Rain. Well, now we're in his head, and we're really getting to know what he thinks about a lot of the things that have happened in, you know, the course of their lives and everything. And there's still things that they hadn't had a chance to work through about the 16 years of separation. And now we know some secrets about Alora that we didn't know, and Alora's having to deal with those. And Siren, who we thought was a villain at the end of the last book, and what's going on with him. Like, there is so much. And I thought it was very well done. So if you love epic fantasy, you love a thick bitch, but you need a spicy, this is the series for you. And I'm so happy to have been able to read an arc of this book and be able to share it with you guys. It is about like 30 or 40 pages longer than the first one. So it's still a big one. It's still a big one. But anyway. All right, then, and this is another one I won't talk too long about because I'm not going to cry again like I did when I talked about it the first time. And that is Before I Let Go. Also, this book doesn't come out till November, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. In my weekly wrap-up from 2 weeks ago, I talked about this one. This will be a traditionally published book for Kennedy Ryan. It won't be a standalone. I mean, it is for this couple. It's a standalone, but there's going to be more books involving characters in here, I think. I think it's supposed to be called like the Skyland series. I'm not sure. But this is a second chance romance. It's a married couple it's a divorced couple, and they divorced after losing a child. So trigger warnings for late term miscarriage, basically stillbirth is where we're at with that. And then the grief of that kind of tore these two apart. And so this is a heavy book, and it won't work for everyone. It'll be too painful for some people. It was almost as painful as Still for me, because it's even more personal to me. As I will say, this couple, a lot of their relationship reminded me of my own parents. But I love these two. This book, the conflict like begins and ends with them and their grief and what's going on. There are other characters who could be used as the drama, as the conflict, but they're not. It's very clear that it's about these two and how if they can save what's going on and if they can be together. And if you've read anything by Kennedy Ryan and you've liked her writing style and you've liked what she's doing, this is the best of it. It's gloriously painful in all of that. So, and that one was a 3 on the spice scale for me. I realized I didn't say about this one. This was a 4 on my spice scale. I liked it. All right, then, and this was a surprise to me that this is on my favorites list, but it really, really is. And that is Proof by Seduction by Courtney Milan. This was our Rake Appreciation Society read. This is Courtney Milan's first book with Harlequin that she did way back in 2010. And this book is about a woman who is a fortune teller and is basically a grifter. Like, she's not really a fortune teller, but when she was left out into the cruel world, she knew she had 2 options. She could become a prostitute, or she could find another way to get money from women and men. And she did that by becoming a fortune teller and becoming vital to certain people. And she felt a certain amount of satisfaction to be swindling people out of money. Like, she did, because she's like, this is what I was forced into. So why shouldn't I take what I need? Then she comes up against Gareth, Gareth is the cousin of one of her clients, a long-term client named Ned, who is this sweet young man who first came to Jenny when he was about to kill himself, and she was able to stop him by making up a fortune for him that pointed him in the right direction. And Ned has come to really rely on Jenny over the years and become, well, kind of friends with her. But Gareth sees her as a threat to his heir, because his cousin is his heir's like future, and that she is taking things from him, which is partially true, but also there's a lot more going into this than Gareth even understands, you know, and he might be sticking his foot into something that he isn't prepared for, you know. And basically there ends up being this bet that's made that has to do with her giving Gareth a fortune about where he's going to find his bride, because he's supposed to get married, and she says, you're going to find this at this place, and Gareth's like, okay, I'm going to go to this and I'm going to prove her wrong, and then I'm going to like seduce her and sleep with her and get her out of Ned's life. He doesn't have the best plan. He's not a super likable guy in this. He's very focused on duty. He's very focused on people don't need to like me, they need to do what I say. And Jenny, she cares for Ned. She does care for him, and she doesn't want to see his spirit stifled. And so she's like, fine, we'll do this bet. And he also bets her that if she loses it, she has to like give up being, you know, what she is. So this book, and again, I have a full discussion on this on Crystal's channel where we had book club. And this, a lot of people didn't care for this, which I understand. It was very frustrating. Courtney Milan writes very angsty. This book was a 3 for me, and then it was a 4, and then it was a 3 again. And then the last 25 pages made it a 5-star for me. The hero had a very believable moment of like come to Jesus moment, and had this grovel and grand gesture that stole my heart. Like it just stole it, and I was like, oh my god, these two, they're gonna have a beautiful future. I don't know how she made me believe it, but she did. And so much so that I'm reading the book after this, which is about Ned, because he gets himself in a sticky situation in this book, and we get to see what happens with that in the next one. So I can't wait to read that. But I ended up giving this 5 stars. This is only a 2 on the spice scale, and it also is like Gareth wants her to be his mistress at one point. He's like, she can stop being a fortune teller. She can be my mistress, because I've never felt this connection before. But he doesn't want to be married because he doesn't want to force someone into the life that he's leading. But he doesn't realize the position that he's putting a woman in by asking her to do that. Because if and when he ever gets tired of her, she loses everything. And he loses nothing. And it's part of the reason why I don't like mistress books. But this one was beautifully feminist in a way that lays it all out for you about like why this is a feminist book without shoving it down your throat. It lays the cards down for you to read yourself, and I love that. And then the last book I want to talk about, which I'm sure everyone will have on their list, like everyone's gonna have it on their list, so I can't do anything other than have it on mine. I don't know where I was going with that, but Mercy by Sarah Kay came out. So this is the final book currently in the Salacious Players Club. Sarah has mentioned she may write more in this series, but I think she's going to take a break for now to do some other things. But man, did this series take off. I remember, like, I've had every one of these books on one of my monthly wrap-ups because I think it's been such a strong series. And Mercy mirrors Praise in so many ways, not only just being about son and father. In fact, let me grab my Praise right. It's right here. So many things about these books like mirrored each other. I mean, even look at the poses, look at all of it. You know, he might be the dom, he might be a sub, but they're still like finding out who they really are and accepting it. And, you know, Beau's ex-girlfriend Charlie, she had never been a sub before she met him, and Beau didn't even know he had those tendencies until he takes the kink quiz and discovers it. And Maggie, she didn't know that she had being a dom in her, or that she wanted to punish Beau and have him please her. And there's a lot she had to come to realize about herself as well. And I just thought it was a really beautiful story. There were things that made it not perfect. I feel like this book is the longest one, and I feel like there was a lot of like wavering around at certain times, but there's also lots of beautiful things. Like when BDSM is involved, I very much like when there is research that needs to be done, when there is safety that needs to be looked into. I mean, safety should always be looked into, but especially when you're first trying something. You know, Maggie has some things like tried on her by other doms to see if she could do it safely to Beau. There was pegging in this book, which was great. And yeah, there were just so many good things about this story, and it had a beautiful ending. It really did. It may be more towards a 4 than a 5 for me. I did rate this 5 though, because number 1, it was an arc. Number 2, I really did love this couple. I just wished for like the next level in this one, but I just loved how they both came to accept them. I also love how Beau came to realize what a beautiful thing his father had created, because once he is fully like engrossed in being comfortable being a sub and having a dom that he wants to be able to please her and serve her, he realizes how special the Salacious Club is and what a safe place that his father has made. And it was really beautiful to see some conversations, and especially one where, you know, Beau is still a bit ashamed or like hasn't come to grips with him being a sub. And when his dad finds out this whole situation, he's like, what, do you have a problem that, am I not man enough because I like to get beat? And his dad was like, I can't believe you just said that to me, because you like obviously don't understand what being a man is if you think I have a problem with you being a sub. I have a problem that you're with, you know, my best friend who is this many years older than you. You know, like, he's like, I have a problem with that because it feels weird to me. Which, of course, we're like, Emerson, you're literally with someone the same age as him. You're with his girlfriend. You know, the shoe's on the other foot. Okay, it is. But I think that, you know, Emerson, besides being shocked about it, handles it very well because he's a good man, right? So anyway, this is on my favorites list. This series was a delight. I really hope she writes more. I think it does such a good job of delivering kink to a lot of people, or even introducing it to them in ways that is very like fun and sexy, and still explains like safety and rules without it being like, first you need to take this class and do this and everything, which you should do if you do this in real life. But when you're in a book, you want it to be sexy and fun, you know? So anyway, very excited to have all of these. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you'll check out some of my favorites for the month. Tell me what your favorite book is that you read this month. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye.